Hi, I'm Joy,
Hi, I'm Lorraine.
and this is Girlish Gurus. And Lorraine, why are we here?
We're here to talk about mid-lifestyle topics for women who are 45 and older to help you live your best, healthiest, and most fulfilled life. We're also going to have lots of fun along the way.
So let's get started. Welcome back to Girlish Gurus. I'm Joy.
And I'm Lorraine.
Lorraine, what are we talking about today?
Today we have a special guest, Barbara de Eduardo, and we are talking about the art of retirement for women. And she wrote a fabulous book about it. And I'm just going to read a little bit about Barbara's background. Barbara is the spirited voice behind the art of retirement for women and a passionate advocate for self-discovery at any age. After transitioning from a high-powered career in engineering and publishing, Barbara found herself navigating the emotional, spiritual, and personal complexities of retirement. Her journey from grief and uncertainty to rediscovery and purpose ignited a calling to support other women in creating joyful, empowered lives post-career. As part of a generation of older, wiser women, with a wealth of life experience, Barbara now feels deeply drawn to be of service, not only to her peers, but also to younger women who are seeking guidance, mentorship, and authentic inspiration. With warmth, humor, and hard-won wisdom, Barbara shares insights on how to tune into your passions, break free from limiting narratives about aging, and embrace retirement as a vibrant, liberating encore. Welcome, Barbara.
Welcome.
Well, hi there. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. So today we're diving into a soulful conversation about what retirement really means for modern women and how it can be the most exciting chapter of our lives, right?
Well, and the rock and roll part. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
The
Barbara, what
soundtrack.
inspired you to write this book?
Actually, it was a perfect storm of stuff. I was in deep grief over the loss of my sister. I had a whole lot of uncertainty, and I was really in this really strange, uncomfortable space where I suddenly found that I had no job. I had no job title. I didn't have a to-do list, and I didn't really even need to set an alarm anymore. I had this long career of running my own business for 20 years, and then everything just went quiet.
Mm.
And it was deafening and really devastating as well. So I've always been a dreamer and a leaper. And if I were to give myself an animal, I would say that I'm a cat. I leap and I land on all fours. It is a blessing that I've had in my life. There were doors that opened to me, and the first one was the Tony Robbins Date with Destiny that my wife signed me up for and then told me about it. I wasn't a happy camper about that. And the realization was I wasn't even a happy camper before she told me. It's not like it changed anything. And I was in the place where I was in that deafening quiet. So it's just, what the heck? I mean, I might as well. And it was during the time everything was still in a lockdown, especially in California, where I was at the time. And it was virtual. I just couldn't believe that it could be engaging in a virtual environment. And I was so wrong. What I came away from with Date with Destiny, there were two really powerful lessons that I came away with. One was that you can change your state of mind by changing your state of physical. There was a method to their madness where sessions would start out with dancing, and they had fabulous music. I was at a standing desk wearing a Fitbit. I very rarely left the room. I came with a lot of snacks. Very, very rarely left the room. And at the end of the day, I would check my steps and I would have over 10,000 steps.
Wow.
It was dancing. It was standing there and being engaging with, there were 22,000 people on this call.
Yeah.
And Tony Robbins, I'd been familiar with him, but one of the things that was really struck me was he reinvented what his events were. from an in-person event to a virtual reality event, and it was engaging. It was absolutely the guy delivered. And the second powerful lesson that I came away from, and this was like a 5-day event, it was actually exhausting, was language is transformational. Those two lessons really gelled with me, and I started thinking that I started having some different thoughts that I just didn't have before, and it was a crack. The next mentor that came in very shortly after was Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I did his program called Rewired. Again, it was a live event and a lot of meditating, which I had done before. His meditations are very different and appealed to my analytical mind in explaining how we manifest, how we connect to source. And it doesn't matter what you call source. Some people call it God, some people call it goddess. I look at it as a divineness, and was able to connect to that inside myself, which was so profound. And I realized that I am actually rewiring my brain chemically. I was rewiring and developing these neural pathways. And I started thinking about this, that when I started talking and thinking about retirement, people think I say the word retirement and there's this winding down image that comes to mind, like you're going to take up bird watching or knitting, but you call it rewirement, and it
Oh, I love that.
really
Me too.
it takes yeah, it takes a whole different thing. All of a sudden
Mhm.
it's rewirement, and all of a sudden you're like this sexy sorceress with a purpose.
Hey, Lorraine,
And
that's us.
yeah, sexy sorceress with purpose. So these two guys, these two mentors, really were instrumental in opening up a window, a door for me that really helped me start to ask questions. And the biggest question for me, actually, the two biggest questions was, who am I and what's next? And that voice that came inside was, and I've always loved writing, always have loved writing. And the voice inside me said, well, there's not a story that you could tell that hasn't been told before. Which you always have that voice. That's the resistance inside you. And I've learned since then that that's a voice that you can just listen to and just say, shut up, just shut up. I'm going to do this. And honestly, how would I possibly even fail at this other than not doing it? So the purpose came as I progressed in this. And my thought was I needed to develop a niche. And so I started reading all these books on retirements, and it was like all of them were 1,001 things to do in retirement, financial planning in retirement. It was 100 things to do in retirement, 501 things to do in retirement. And they were all the same thing: aquatic water sports, chair yoga. If I hear anything more about chair yoga, I think I might just break the chair. And it occurred to me that I called it my can opener moment, where I connected with the music, and that was through Tony Robbins. That the music, I remember growing up as a kid, I used to sing into the hairbrush. Who didn't, right?
Oh, yeah, me too.
And yes, and my sisters were like backup singers,
Oh, we did that
and
too.
we always took turns. So I decided I am going to do a book, and I'm going to theme it with a playlist for life. And I started creating song list and found that I would find songs that really were emblematic about the section that I was writing about. And it was a great way to, the moments when I would just sit there, at a blank computer screen, and I've got no idea what I'm going to write. And I started playing some music, and it was my muse.
I
So it
love that.
really
Yeah, me too.
it was really, really instrumental in helping me write this book. And my goal was to write a book that I couldn't find.
Mhm.
And I knew it was going to be messy. I wanted it to be honest, and I wanted it to be real. And more than anything, I wanted it to be inspiration. And what was wonderful is that as I was writing it, I was falling in love with this book. and just it was a joyful experience for me. I loved it. And my message, really what I wanted to communicate, that is that retirement is an opportunity. It can be a lot of fun, and it can be downright fabulous.
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
what was the pivotal moment that made you realize that retirement needed a whole new narrative, especially for women? I know you said you
Wow.
did your research on retirement and
Yes.
in general, right? So what was it that made it like this whole new thing for women?
I think my pivot moment was more of a slow simmer of irritation. And it started when AARP found me at 50. And it was just these articles and this mindset that just didn't feel like me at all. And then really the pivotal moment was being in the stew of, it's like, oh, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be financially okay. And so it's not like I needed another career that actually paid money. And I did consider becoming, well, I thought about starving artist, and I could just skip the starving part and go
Yeah.
right to artist. So I did take up painting, and I've had a great time with that. But what I realized with the AARP, and I started thinking about it more, is I'm technically a boomer. And what I realized is that women really are underestimated.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then you layer that with boomers, and then you layer that with being that mature woman, in going into retirement. And I thought, hey, I could really use this as an advantage. There's something, that could be strategic here, where you
Mhm.
get underestimated. And then when you succeed, it's just like, oh, wow, you're an overachiever. It's just like, no.
Well,
Living
I
life.
right. I do think that it's a surprise to a lot of people how women at this point in our lives, we are becoming much more of a voice, and we are more present in social media, and we are just coming to the table a lot more loudly than we ever have before. So that's something that Lorraine and I have capitalized on. And, I'm out there cheering them on, like, yes,
Yeah.
you know, grab your middle age and go for it, for
Right,
sure. Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
a there's an evolution to this point in life where if you're fortunate, and I think more women are coming to this realization that really is a point in your life where you care more about how you feel and
Yeah.
less about how people feel about you.
Oh,
Mm.
yes.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, for sure. So I love that you, in your book, didn't just talk about money or logistics or really dry concepts that people associate and have associated with retirement in the past. You really focused on the soul of retirement. Now, can you walk us through your 7 steps? And you talk about retirement being an encore, not an ending. And so, can you show us what you mean through that 7 step process?
Sure. And I love that you call it the soul of retirement. It really is. And looking at it that way, it gave me permission to define it for myself, how I felt fit to define it. And it's a very dynamic, fluid thing that brings me a lot of joy and fulfillment. And I really used the experiences that I had going through retirement and what I did. And one thing that I hope is understood is that in a book, you have to be linear. It's just the nature of the medium rather. And these 7 steps, they don't have to be done sequentially. They don't have to be done in any order. They're really an opportunity to really just kind of get the train going on the tracks. So the first one for me was finding my passion. And that was actually a really uncomfortable experience. I didn't know what my passion was. I ran a company for 20 years. It was a tech company. So there was the creation of it, and then there was the running of it. And it didn't really leave a lot of time for anything else that was soul filling for me. And so I had to reconnect to a younger self
Yeah.
that really did find joy in other things. So finding my passion was a journey. It still is a journey. And what I realized, I don't really have any one dominating passion other than at this point is that I do want to be of service. I want to give back. How do I do that? How do I translate skills that I have into a way of being a force of good, especially for women? The second thing was that I love is moving your body. And I would be in the hardware store and I would be doing calf raises as I'm waiting in line and just looking around and seeing older, I'd say older, they're probably the same age as I am, leaning on their carts or shuffling or slouching. And it was just always a reminder to me is that stand erect, shoulders back, proud, love this body and I'm present. So I got back into working out, I've always I love the gym and work. That was one of the things that I surrendered was my physicality was I just didn't work out anymore.
Yeah.
And so I got back into that and that was, boy, I could write a book about that. But yes, a lot of heating pads,
Oh yeah.
salt
Mhm.
baths, and reality checks. You're not 20 anymore, girl. So that was fun. I still have a lot of fun doing that. The other thing that I really, really connected with was, and the titles in the book of the chapters are different from what I'm saying, and I'm really, these are the titles that I like to go with. The next one was Feed My Mind. I am a lifelong learner. I love it. I love learning everything from hydroponics. I'm taking a class in that next week. I
Wow.
love stargazing. I love art. I love quantum physics.
Hmm.
And now I love archaeology, which around here I can go down the road and find places of interest, which is really exciting for me.
I love
So
Tucson.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
it's a great
That's
place.
amazing.
So feeding your mind is so important. Honestly, I think it's one of the most important things to keep you young at mind. And being young at mind keeps you young at heart, keeps you young in body, young in life. The most challenging one for me was during lockdown COVID, everybody became isolated. And I laughed to myself. I didn't really have a lot of 3D friends. They were all kind of on the screen,
Oh yeah, for sure.
text and stuff like that. So one of the challenges for me was finding my people. And I honestly, I think I was really kind of really judgy about that too. I didn't want a gardening club or a women's club. I tried to join the Red Hats and I didn't get accepted. Um,
How dare they?
Yeah.
I know. It's like, okay, fine. I don't like wearing hats and I don't really look good in a red hat. So I did find groups, Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation groups, started meeting in person, and the age span is across the board, 20 somethings all the way up to 80-year-olds that are into this type of meditation that really is about, it's actually, I could write it. In fact, I will write a book about that because that is just an experience that blew my mind. And I would love for others to explore it as well. So finding my people, that's something that's in process for me right now. I'm actually joining a group of, it's the Tucson wine hiking committee or group. So
That's the
I
only
don't
way
know
to
how,
hike with
I
wine.
know I'm not so sure how that's going to work, but it's like I'm all in on it.
As
And
long as the wine's maybe at the end.
there
No,
you
no,
go.
Lorraine. You get what Camelback and you fill it full of the Pinot Grigio. Come on.
Yes, chilled.
Yeah, that's right. Put some
Um,
ice cubes in there.
so the next step was making your space sacred, and I have a great time doing that. in all of this, we sold our house in California. We had no house to move into. We moved into this teeny tiny little mobile trailer in Yuma, Arizona, it's magnificent because it's in my rear view mirror right now. So there was a lot of downsizing and going through the things that you accumulate over time in a home. We were in this house in Monterey, California for 30 years. So, I mean, we're not hoarders or anything, but you get a lot of stuff after 30
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And so going through it I became the master of piles. This pile was, I don't know, this pile was fat chance, and that pile was absolutely going. So piles just moved from place to place, but it was an opportunity to get solid with letting things go and recognizing the things that I wanted to bring with me. So in the physical world, it was an exercise that really helped me in the spiritual world as to what I was ready to let go of and what I was ready to bring forth with me. The next step I call it's really about it's living your day with purpose, but I call it creating your masterpiece days. I do it every day. And for me, a masterpiece day could be, well, first of all, what I do is I wake up in the morning and one of the first things I do is generally smile. I mean, it's a little thing, but
Yeah.
it sets the temperature
Yeah.
for the day. And so my masterpiece day is really what I want to accomplish today. Like today was to be present here. And the other goal that I have is later on this afternoon, I'm hosting a mastermind for a group of women who want to write their books. I've never
Nice.
done that
Awesome.
before. How hard could it be? So
Easy.
yes, yes. I feel as long as I come to it genuine and authentic and able to listen and mirror back what I'm hearing. I like being the talking mirror. Yes. The last step, which is the most powerful step, and it requires no special equipment whatsoever, is being in a state of gratitude and one of mindfulness.
Yep.
And when you get really dialed into this, gratitude, this is something I learned with Dr. Joe Dispenza, that when you're in a state of gratitude, there is no room for anything else. There's no room for fear. It might try to edge in there. There's no room for anything but being grateful for whatever comes to mind. I'm grateful for my first cup of coffee in the morning, which many times is brought to me in bed. I love
That's
that.
nice.
And that's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Can't
Good
be
Lord. That's
grateful.
yeah, me too.
Yeah. And the mindfulness is just an awareness of what is in a moment. I was actually out in the front yard, which is wild with desert blooms right now. And there is a hummingbird that sits on this sunflower branch, and I swear she just stares at me. And so I started walking on the other side of this sunflower, and she came at me. And I realized there's a nest around here, and she is protecting that nest.
Mm.
And I wonder how many people walk by. We live on a little cul-de-sac, walk by, first don't even see the blooms, and they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then don't even see these little creatures that are just amazing in their aerial acrobats.
Yeah.
And so, so I'm grateful to be of that mind space where I can appreciate that stuff. It makes me smile.
And I know for many women, that is a hard thing, right? We always talk about the weight of the world on our shoulders, right? Women tend to be, well, they are the stronger sex, but they tend to hold everything. They tend to be the ones who have to fix everything.
Mhm.
Hey Lorraine, don't forget, it's time for us to schedule our Lifeline screening appointments. They're 5 simple tests to help us keep on top of our heart and bone health, which is important for women over 45.
Yes, Lifeline Screening has been the premier provider of preventative health screening for over 30 years. In that time, over 10 million people have had screenings to detect their risk of stroke, cardiovascular disease, and other chronic illnesses. Lifeline Screening can provide meaningful benefits for your body and mind, and that's why they're committed to delivering accurate results and recommendations that could give you a healthier advantage in your everyday life, such as early detection of serious conditions, prevention of disease progression, peace of mind so you can enjoy life, savings with more affordable screenings, and no insurance required.
Yep, and don't forget, by using the link in the show notes of this episode, you get a special offer available to Girlish Gurus listeners, so make sure and schedule your appointment.
Get peace of mind now. Here's to your good health. So, in that regard, what fears or limiting beliefs do women often face when it comes to retirement?
It's like, where do we even begin with that one? What fears don't women face?
Yeah.
And it's just not at retirement. We absolutely live in a culture, as you can tell, this is a really hot topic for me. Women have been oppressed at every stage in their life, full stop. And from girlhood to menopause and beyond, and then you start layering in ageism. You know, you go from a stage in life where you're seen as vibrant and beautiful and a little bit dangerous to the male species because they don't possess the ability to refrain from, from things that they should refrain from. So women are put in a state of fear about going for walks on their own, having headphones in as you're walking to your car. You just have to be more aware. There's this low hum of it's dangerous out there for a woman.
Vulnerability. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, a vulnerability. And in today's state of where we are, even in this country, it's actually become codified. Women no longer have the right to make choices about their bodies, which I just actually still blows my mind. Then you got a beauty industry that's got its own marketing to women. You've got a film industry that doesn't value older women like they do men. And then underneath all of that, you've got this narrative that a woman has to get married, she has to have kids, and she has to let the man be the decision maker and the money maker, which really isn't true at all. But there's this mindset that we're really culturally groomed for, that a woman is in the back seat. And so honestly, I've never felt that. My mom she was a glass ceiling breaker in so many respects. She was a widow at a young age. She had 5 kids. She had gone back to college. She was in a freshman year when my dad passed away. We were all really young kids. And she continued college and she had a teaching career for 30 years with special ed kids. And one thing
Wow.
that mom would always say is act as if you can be anything you want to be. And I really believe that. We didn't watch a lot of TV. TV was different at that time too. So in regards to fears and limiting belief that women face, I think at this point in your time, you have to consider the fact that maybe it's time for a little deprogramming. And I love quotes. I love the way that you can compact such big emotion into small words or a small phrase. And one of these quotes, I'm not going to do this guy justice. His name is Jiddu Krishnamurti, Indian, of course. And he said that it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society. And I was thinking, well, what the heck does that mean? And what does it have to do with me? And what it means is that by my defining what my wellness is in a society that sees it as something completely different, is an opportunity for me to inspire others to do the same. And that's the way that we change society. It's a groundswell up.
Mhm.
The other
Mhm.
quote that I think is really, really powerful comes from Richard Bach and his book Illusions, the Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah, which I read like decades ago. And in it, the quote is, "Argue for your limitations, and most certainly they are yours."
Yes. Hmm. Whether you
But
can or whether you can't, you're right.
yes,
I think it's Wayne
yes,
Dyer that said that, but I'm not 100% sure. So,
yes, 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 exactly. You're
Mhm.
right. A lot of people being right, it's important to them, and it's just like not the point,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
the
So I
point of
think
it.
you really did just address this, but what mindset shift has the biggest impact on women during these years, just as they're about to retire, about what's next?
Yes. What's next? What's next? And then wait for the answer. And if you kind of get a shoulder shrug, don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. But don't stop asking until you get the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
easier said than done, though, to accept that ambiguity and that unknowingness. It's hard to do that. It's hard to be able to sit in that space and say, okay, I have no conclusive answer. Let me just continue to sit here. And we're not hardwired to do that.
no, we're not. We're not. It's actually a programming, it's an operating system.
Mhm.
And first of all, you have to realize that it is an operating system. It's a program. And you have programs that run in the background, and you have programs that run in the foreground. And ultimately, you are the programmer. So you either accept inputs that are coming into you and start to be, I call it the warrior of the mind in regards to what inputs you let in, or you don't.
Mhm.
It's just really, I mean, and it's no judgment on that, but it is a choice.
Mm.
And one of the revelations for me has been that it is a choice. And I'm very, very fierce about what I let come into my mind. And for example, news, we do streaming TV, and so I don't really even watch a lot of TV, but just doom scrolling, which I love the name doom scrolling. It's just and it's really appropriate. But I did a little experiment in regards to on a day, just being aware of how much I was scrolling news, and the impact that it had on my sleep was measurable. It took me, so I did that one day where I yeah, just really kind of went on a binge of news. And in my experiment, it took me 3 days to really recover from that, where I'm a big fan of good quality sleep. I've learned how important it is. And I realized the impact that it had on my sleep that I wasn't really even aware of, or the thoughts that I was having, the level of fear that I was feeling, and how recovering in 3 days made me feel different. Now, does that mean I don't suggest that as a way that we should disconnect from the world? What I do say is that I'm a proponent of being aware of what you let into your mind. And I want people to understand that these news outlets, they have algorithms and they want to keep you engaged.
Well, some can say the same about social media too.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, the
Yes.
24-hour news cycle, I think, is one of the
it's not
worst
a,
things that has ever happened to our
yeah.
health.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Mhm.
There's some great books on that. The Anxious Generation is a good book
I
about
have that.
that.
Yeah.
Yes. And another one, I love the name of this title. It's so witty. It's called Metabolical. And it really is about food and the marketing of food
Mm.
to us. And
No, we could do a
it's
whole other episode on
Oh, for
yes,
that.
it's
sure.
really,
Yes.
really, those books I don't read before bed.
No, no.
No,
Those are
yeah.
books where an hour of time, I set an hour of time and read them, and it's usually earlier in the day. I could go on for a long time about fears and limiting beliefs, but my focus is an awareness of those things and then a plan to do otherwise.
Maybe along the same lines, you had said earlier on when we first started the podcast about grief being a big part of your journey, and that your book touches on emotional healing. So how does addressing grief or unresolved emotions play into having a fulfilling retirement?
That's a really, really good question. From my experience, I'm going to use my sister's passing, which was more wounding to me than it was when my dad passed.
Mm.
And I I believe that's because of age. I was a kid and not with a lot of experience. So it was real, but then it wasn't real. My sister and her sudden passing was in my face real, and it happened during the pandemic.
Oh no.
So there were
Ugh.
this, this hum of fear of being, of getting sick, of, I mean, it was just a really horrible, horrible time. And the grief was so deep and so profound and so paralytic that I at times really couldn't even breathe. So that was also the point where Date with Destiny, Rewired, and these were things that came in at a time, and that in hindsight were teaching me about just the state of being. It is what it is. And there is this beautiful ability of being human where you can actually hold two different things
Yes.
at the same time that are on opposite sides of the spectrum,
Mhm.
grief and happiness.
Yes.
And I started recognizing that I was getting to a place where I could have memories of my sister and experiences of her that would make me laugh, because she was such a humorous woman. And she loved music. And she couldn't dance worth a lick, but she didn't care. And we both enjoyed wine. And this was a slow evolution, but what I recognize now is that taking the grief and transforming it into something else. And it's not like I still don't have that grief. It's not as deep, and it's not as shaded in grief. It's not the paralytic grief. It is one that I'll feel sadness, and then that passes, and what comes next is a beautiful memory. And so touching on emotional healing is that I realize, for me, this is the truth, is that emotional healing, it's a healing. And if you get to the point where it becomes a scar, it never goes away, but it's not the deep wound. It's a scar. It's a reminder of the journey that you've been on. And I don't know that I ever want to release that, but I don't want it to be the thing that fills up my glass.
Mhm.
So, and that's a journey that each woman has to take, each person has to take. And again, it comes to being a choice. Do you let it fill your glass, or do you let it not, or maybe just be part of the glass and create the room to let something else inside?
Those are beautiful words. Actually, I have tears in
Lovely.
my eyes and I'm getting choked up.
Yeah.
I love how you describe it as a scar,
Yeah.
that it's always
Yes.
there, but it's not that deep wound. Yeah.
Okay. Um, we got to
Get
move
it
on to
together.
enough. Yeah. Wait, okay.
Moving on.
Moving on. Okay.
Oh.
So, as you have been on this path, do you have any specific stories of transformation, or maybe can you share a story that lit you up of a woman who reclaimed her joy in retirement? And let me just say, you can never have too much joy.
Amen to that, sister.
That's right.
Yes, I have gotten some great feedback on this book. One gal wrote and told me that she recommended the book to her friend, got it for her, and gave her a yellow highlight marker with it and said, "You're going to need this," which I love. There's one gal that I had heard from, her name was Diane, and she had worked 30 years, married, had kids, had grandkids, retired, and just got this sense that it was also very deafening for her too. And she loved spending time with the grandkids, but didn't want to be with them all the time. I think she enjoyed spending time with her own kids, but it seemed like the grandkids were the highlight. So one of the things she started to do was decluttering, and she came across all her watercolor paraphernalia from days when she was doing painting. And she thought, this is what I want to get back into. She hadn't even remembered that she'd like to paint or that she even had this stuff. And she had it all the paintbrushes, the palettes, the media, I don't know that they call it canvas for watercolors. It's more the watercolor paper. And she started painting. She didn't do it for anybody else. She wasn't going to show it to anybody else, and just would spend hours painting, relearning the mixing of colors, the applying. Yeah, and it sounded like she was a pretty gifted artist in creating color palettes and just abstracts. So she played with that a lot. And I guess at one point she had talked to some friends about it and they were really, really into it. So she did a little meet and greet wine group that they did watercoloring. And it was like 3 friends that came over. So there were 4 of them. They'd have their white wine, they'd have their little painting session, probably got a pretty good buzz at the same time. And her friends started talking about this, and she got invited to a community center to host a paint and wine session. So she did that, and she just realized that it just opened up this, and she still doesn't want to paint to sell, but she realizes that this opened up an avenue for her to be creative. It reconnected her with a younger self, and it also created new connections of women who were really on the same journey with her, and friendships that she's building, community that she's building, and she feels so grateful for it. And I don't know how instrumental my book was to it, but it might have been the crack. And she was just really, really grateful for me writing the book. And it just tickled me that my book would have that impact on somebody, and that they would take the time to contact me, because I had my email address in the book. And she wrote to me, and it was thrilling. It's
Yeah.
absolutely thrilling. The feedback that I'm getting on the book is just moving.
Lovely.
Yeah, and everything that you've talked about, I know will be so inspiring to the women out there. And even this conversation may just be the crack.
Mhm.
I encourage all the ladies out there, of course, to purchase your book because it's wonderful and they'll get a lot out of
Thank
it.
you.
So if a listener is feeling uncertain about retirement and thinking, where do I start? Maybe you have a mantra or something that you could share. Like, what would you say?
Ooh, what was it? This is a really powerful question. And I would start with what makes you smile. And this is a hard thing for people to do, to sit quietly, or maybe it doesn't have to be that quiet, but to sit and not have interruptions, people coming in and talking to you, but to sit and take a moment for yourself and just ask yourself the question, what makes me smile? And it comes to asking the question and taking a moment and letting an answer come to you. And again, that little voice might sit there and be, I've learned to call it Project X, that little voice that is really kind of like a little bit like a snit that comes back and just says, it's like, what a stupid question.
Oh, I love that. I call it my mean, angry roommate. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Project X. That's
yes.
funny.
So you got that little voice in your head, and it's just, I don't know, say hello to it and then say, back off, take a break, shut up, whatever you want to say to it, and wait for another voice to answer you. And if it, again, it's like what we talked about earlier, it might be that you don't hear that voice. But all of us have that voice inside, all of us do. And it would be a quest. And maybe that could be something you could think about, is that quest is to be able to hear that voice. And so you have to ask the question, what makes me smile? And wait for an answer. Or if you're not hearing something, just throw something out there. Does pickleball make me smile? How about bowling? Maybe pool. How do you feel about chair yoga?
Yep. Or podcasting.
Or podcasting? Yes, that's a brilliant.
Yeah.
I really, you guys have actually got me interested in it.
Yeah. So
So
I actually love the way you've reframed retirement to rewirement.
Yes.
I love that.
I love that.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to get a shirt. I've been
Yeah.
thinking about, that's actually something I've been thinking about, opening up an Etsy shop with all these little retirement is my revolution.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Yeah.
Do it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. You know, and I think the thing of it is, as far as where do you start, just realize that this doesn't have to be earth-shattering for anyone else. All it has to be is earth moving for you.
Mhm.
Oh, perfect.
You
I
know,
love that. Yeah. I love that.
Well, Joy has one more question for you before
all
we go,
right.
and then we'll go and let everybody know where they can find you and all of that. But go ahead, Joy.
All right. So, Barbara, what are 3 things you would have told your younger self so that we can share your philosophy with our listeners?
Okay, I'll be real about this. I would have told my younger self 3 things only, huh?
Next book.
Yes, well, it's funny, I was going to be a little bit
Now, this is a family show.
a family show, yes. So we won't talk about what investment advice I would have given myself. But it would have been, buy Netscape, wait, get out of it. But the 3 things I would have been, oh boy, that's a really good question. 3 things I would have said: don't start smoking. That was one of the worst things to get over. The second thing would be, I don't really have any regrets going back, honestly. But the second thing would be, spend more time with your sisters, spend more time with family. The third thing would be, buy the ranch when you get the opportunity to. One of the dreams I've always had, really, I'm at a point in my life where that is a dream that will have to wait for another lifetime. The opportunity came, I didn't take it. So if I were to sum that,
You never know.
you never know. That's true. That's true.
You never know. You know?
But those would be the 3 things. Don't start smoking. So everybody out there, smoking's not the thing that it used to be anymore, but vaping or doing any of that kind of nasty BS.
I think it cost me my mother early. Yeah, she died at 59 and a half, and she was a
Oh
smoker.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I know. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you on that one. Yeah.
So the other thing was, yes. So number 2 would be, take the opportunity to spend time with family. And number 3 would be, seize the opportunities.
I love that.
Yes. So
Perfect.
good question. Really good questions.
And what a great way to end. And we want you to now share, where can the ladies listening out there find your book?
My book is available on Amazon. I am working on developing a TikTok presence.
Oh, nice.
So I'm learning about that. But at this moment right now, Amazon is the place to go to get my book. And I would love the readers out there to leave a review and let me know what you think and share your stories with me. My email address is in the book. I would love to hear how the book has impacted you and what good stuff comes out of it, if it creates a crack.
And don't worry, we will put the link to the book in the show notes, so it'll be easy for everybody to find. Yeah. And I thank you so much again, Barbara. This has been a wonderful conversation. A lot of golden nuggets in there.
Oh, yes.
And
for
just as you
sure.
said, like you like those little condensed quotes, you had quite a number of them in there that are
Mhm.
very inspiring. So thank you.
My
And
pleasure.
I just love that there's somebody out there who's thinking about retirement for women outside of the box because, you know, we don't always have people looking out for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't. So
Yes.
this is a great resource. I hope everyone goes out and checks it out. And just thank you so much for being here. You've been a lovely guest, and we can't wait to see what you do next.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Yeah.
so appreciate this opportunity. Thank you both.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening
Sounds
and
good.
watching. Bye-bye.
Mwah.
Bye. Mwah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Girlish Gurus. We hope you'll join us next time for more fun and inspiration. Be sure to check the description of this episode for links and information about the topic, and you can find us on our social media platforms starting with Instagram, Facebook, and now including YouTube. You can find us by searching Girlish Gurus, and you can also check out our website, girlishgurus.com, for more information on us, our projects, books, and our growing community.
And don't forget to download this episode, give it a good review, and share it with your girlfriends. We would also love to hear from you in the comments because the more interaction we get, the more episodes we can post. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.